do it. Okay, welcome everyone. So we'll do roll call.
Chin,
Here.
Hagan,
Here.
Murphy,
Here.
Moss, Wilson.
Okay, great. Thanks, Evelyn. Any oral communications? All right, so we'll move on. So everybody got the agenda? I don't know if there's any changes, requests, or deletions. No? Okay, great. So I think we need to approve the agenda. If anybody wants to motion and second.
I'll move to approve it.
Bob
I'll second.
and Amy, all in favor? Oh, any comments or changes? None? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No abstentions. Okay, great. So moving on, we're ahead of schedule already. Look at that. At this rate.
Keep it up.
Okay, draft minutes. We have both 2 meetings worth, right? Was it August? Oh, I'm sorry, June and,
So June is just the final version.
got
That's the
it.
approved version.
Excellent. Okay, so the August minutes.
Yeah, I had one correction. On page 2, the second paragraph up from the bottom, to make it a little bit clearer. A few of the seminars that Moss attended were graphic memoirs which were about problems in the world and how libraries may look at them. Yeah,
In the
I think
future.
that's a little clearer.
Okay. Okay, great. So, any other comments or changes to the minutes? Okay, so we need a motion with the change that Bob mentioned.
I'll move to approve it with the correction.
Bob? Brigham? Okay, great. All, any comments or questions? Great. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And no abstentions? Okay, great, thanks. All right, so the next item on the agenda is the 2017 Pacific Library Partnership Technology Innovation Grant. And we'd like to welcome Diane back again. And with her, I think, is Ryan, right? So welcome, and we look forward to hearing about robots and our virtual reality station.
Okay.
And your presentation is combining the 3,
Right.
yeah, so
That sequence.
we're actually, so that you know that the presentation will actually cover the next 3 agenda items and in sequential order. So just so you don't think, oh, wait a minute, we just did 1. We're doing all 3 in a row.
Okay, great.
And
Okay.
now Diane will take it away. And you may want to turn off your,
Oh, yeah.
Hello, this is Diane Lai from the library, and Ryan Hess, this is his first time. He's the manager for digital initiatives in the library. So we have 3 topics to cover tonight: grant-funded technology, digital resources, social media in the library. So the first is about the technology grant-funded program in the library. It's funded by Pacific Library Partnership, short for PLP. Each year since 2012, that organization awards grants to PLP libraries to support innovation and technology. The grants are awarded in 2 categories: Innovation and Technology Opportunity Grants, and the Grant Replication Program. The grant amounts awarded vary, but typically are up to $15,000. These grants are highly competitive, and the winners are thought as best representing innovative ideas for improving communities through accessible technology. Our library has been awarded Community Publishing with 2020 Press in 2013, Maker plus a summer Maker program in 2014, build up the bikes at Palo Alto City Library in 2015, and this program in 2016. So the goal of this program is positioning libraries for the virtual future. And we set out with 4 objectives: generating excitement about library services, creating opportunities for the public to engage in technology. A library appears in media regarding use of technologies, and the community better understands the virtual future of libraries. So when we got the grants, before we applied and then after we received the grant, staff did research, and we asked ourselves what technology in the marketplace may be most suitable for achieving our objectives, and what staff expertise do we have to deliver expected results. So we brainstormed for ideas, and we worked with Monique, and then we decided to focus on carrying out 3 experiments. And the first one you can see in the picture, the first one is BEAM, to use BEAM. That experiment was designed around this BEAM, a telepresent robot. And in 5 branches, the BEAM makes it convenient for librarians in one location to remotely have a telepresence. And then the second one you can see is our Now robot. It's a humanoid robot, and we named him or her Dewey. And the third one is a supercomputer station you can see that may be used for virtual reality and 3D modeling. So the next, Ryan is going to share with us what we have done in each of the experiments.
Right, so one of the things we wanted to find out was how would the public accept this technology in the library space, right? So they're going to come in, they're going to get some children's books, or maybe go to an event, and suddenly there's this robot standing in front of them with someone's face superimposed on it. So we were kind of curious how that would be accepted. So we were looking at that. We with the beam specifically, this is kind of what we did. We looked at various things like how long do they keep eye contact with the robot, what kind of questions do they ask, did they step away from it when it approached them, or did they step forward, did they smile or did they grimace, what kinds of reactions were we getting? So we kind of measured that. Do we have the notes on the numbers, or there were, I forget how many, but it was like about 150 interactions that we had, or maybe more than that. So we got a lot of data, and we kind of looked at it. Generally, people were pretty happy with it. So that was kind of what we were looking at. Also, just to see like how it would work in the library environment. There's some technical stuff, including having it on a phone versus a computer, and what kind of technical problems we might run into. And then also, like, what kinds of statements does the public make about this technology when they're talking with us, when they're actually interacting with someone who's using the beam? What kinds of things, what kind of ideas are generated during the experience that they're having? Oh, yeah. With Now, we were looking at a lot of different things. So Now is a humanoid robot. It's programmable, so you can make it do just about anything. It can dance, it can sing, it can play music, whatever. It's very versatile, and it's quite cute. So we knew kids would be really interested in it. We also wanted to sort of measure that enthusiasm, and we tried it in a story time. With kids, and in this particular photo, you can see the robot doing, I think the name of the song was like Hands, Knees, and Toes. Yeah, did you happen to see it, or have you seen that before?
Because I know the procedure for this is Mandarin story time, right? Chinese.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so now can do that. It can be programmed to do that. So we tried it in a story time. We also did a programming tutorial. So this was like a class where the public could come in and they could try using the programming interface, which is like it's a what you see, what you get WYSIWYG editor where they can just drag and drop commands into a sequence and make a program all themselves. So we were showing them how to do that, and then they can actually program the robot virtually. There's like a little robot in the corner of your web browser that when you play run on the program you wrote, you can see all the movements and the sound and stuff that the robot would actually do. And then you can come and you can try it with the real robot. So this was another thing that we tried. So it's kind of thinking about different ideas of how we might use the robot. And then also we were looking at this 3D design coaching idea. So we built a computer that had a really nice graphics card in it, could handle a lot of different applications, including virtual reality, but also running high-end graphics software like Adobe Creative Cloud. And then we had volunteers from the community. We had 2 teen volunteers that knew a little bit about 3D modeling software, and they would run these tutorials where they would coach the public on how to use the software, how to build various things. And again, we're trying to measure the enthusiasm and sort of interest and start understanding like what how a program like this, a really kind of high tech, where a high tech skill is involved, could work in a library setting. So just some comments. I came with my 7-year-old kids. We all learned a lot about using Blender, which is this 3D modeling software. It was great, thanks. Another person said super fun, cool to see an airplane being constructed. So generally it was actually kind of interesting because these events were booked solid within like a few days of the events going live. So there was a lot of public interest in this. So that was kind of encouraging. Here's some findings. So we'll get into some of the things that we learned. 88.4% of the questions asked of the beam were about the beam itself, like what is this? What's going on here? They were often asking who is the person behind the beam, things like that. 82% of customers felt comfortable with the beam. And this varied by location, which was also interesting. We noticed that Mitchell Park, with all the activity and the sound level being higher there, people seem to be more comfortable there than, say, at Rinconada where it's quieter. Customers wanted to see more. They thought it was pretty exciting to come across this technology in the library, and they weren't expecting it, so it was kind of fun for them. We found there was a steep learning curve with some of this technology, and especially with the Now robot, it's not really suitable for group interactions because of the way that the robot's voice recognition works. It really needs only one person talking at a time. When you start getting multiple voices, it gets confused and misunderstands what's being said. Being on the cutting edge like this also includes some risks. So we had a lot of robot problems. We had the robot not performing like we expected, or the robot needing to be restarted a couple times. The people who build the robot themselves, SoftBank, would also admit, like, yeah, this is pretty advanced technology. A lot can go wrong. So there was always that going on. But again, like the sort of tech happenings in the library did elicit a lot of excitement and enthusiasm among the public. And the tech programming, like the 3D coaching, was very popular. So we see some opportunities there.
So there's some lesson learned.
Yeah, so one of the things that we did find out was, especially when we were leaning on the skills of the public has to show up for these sessions, right? So we did, having 2 high school volunteers, we did run into a couple issues where people would show up for their sessions, but the high school student didn't show up. So this is kind of where, how do we handle this in the future? If we have library staff that have been trained in certain technologies, but then there's new stuff that's coming out, it's brand new, and there's not a lot of people in the library community that know how to do this, how do we manage these programs? So there's some things like that we learned that were kind of interesting and good lessons for the future.
So before we move on to the next agenda item, I don't know if there's any other questions or comments on that first topic? Sure. Around the grant and the technology?
Yeah, so we realize the technology changes rapidly, and library users actually look to our sites as petting zoos and as a public lab to learn about technology and just to keep up with what's available in the marketplace. They look toward us since they realize we have been experimenting with different technologies. And then so through Ryan's presentation, you may see that our project was very well received, and it costed more than the grant money, dollar amount. And we learned much about launching new technology-based services at our library. And more importantly, this is the point that we felt really proud of, is that we have been able to engage communities through volunteers to provide the service with us together, and engage kids. And then kids and their parents, and then and then even bystanders, they were watching, but then they feel interested in what we're doing. So overall, we really reached the 5 objectives we set out for ourselves for this project. So, time for questions?
Yeah, thanks, Diane.
Okay, one of the things that struck me is we have a lot of high-tech companies in this area. And have we ever gone to any of them and said, would you like to introduce your new innovation at the library and teach librarians and the community what it is you're bringing out, or what it is you've just introduced, or something like that? Go to Google, go to Nest, go to Alphabet, go to all these local companies, and see if they want to introduce things at the library and basically give demonstrations and teach. I think that'd be a good way of interfacing them with the community, and they can't complain about the cost of the publicity. So I think consider it if you haven't.
Yes, it's a great comment, and then certainly there's a lot we can do. So far, we've only engaged with Google. They're training, a scientist has been coming to library to train, to offer classes. But that's more about Google searches. But surprisingly, Chromebooks, surprisingly, even ourselves have learned a lot from these trainings. So, but of course, there's a whole lot more to do. Yeah.
Yeah, and one thing that we do regularly do is we do go out to some technology conferences, and we do engage with the vendors there. And this is especially true with the robotics makers and the VR companies in the area. And we've talked to them about, coming down, maybe doing, like, sometimes when we go to these conferences, they're showing off their stuff, and this would be great if you guys could come to our library and show the community like what you're doing, maybe even try it out with them. And they're very interested in this sort of approach, and I think it's something that we're looking at maybe doing in the next year or two. We've been talking about ramping up our digital projects with the public, so this is an area that we're interested in exploring.
So what are your next steps with this technology that you have, like, did you buy the beam and the now robot, the computer? Are they still around? Are they still being used? What are your plans?
Yes, we bought them. So, they are in the office, and what we want to do with a beam is we plan to have volunteers to come in to be trained, and then they can serve as greeters using the beam. So they can say, hi, can I help you? The staff is here and books are there. So that sort of services, the simple directional services. And then for now, they actually, the vendor that sold us the robot has an educational component to it. They developed the educational module. So that came with the robot. So what we plan to do is engage high school kids. For example, we can hold competitions. So kids, not just high school for this community, maybe even elementary school kids, they can use that particular program called choreography. They can use that program to write whatever they want this humanoid to do and send it to us, and then we can load it, or they can remotely load it to make this robot work for them. And eventually, we hope we can hold a competition, for example, and see who can program and make the robot do whatever tricks we kids want it to do, will want her to do.
Yes, thank you. Very good presentation. Thank you so much. And my question is very simple and straight. And how many beans we have right now? And I like to know that what kind of effect that you expect from bean, and also will bean help us to reduce the staff? Like you said that they would do the basic greeting, and does that mean that the staff usually behind the desk to answer questions, will the bean be able to do that? So it can help us to manage the staff work or that kind of thing. Will bean do that?
We have one beam. We've moved it around to different libraries to show it off and to do things. You still need one person to run the beam, so it's a 1-for-1. So there's no change to the staff. We had not had staff standing in the front greeting because they were all involved in other activities in the back. So having someone new, the thing about Beam is that you could have someone, at home in Florida, and they could run the computer no matter where they are, as long as you have an internet connection in the software. So from that aspect, it could be good. We've looked into whether or not one person could handle multiple beams at once, which I don't know if that would work because you'd have to navigate. I attended staff meetings via Beam. I was sick and at home, and so I went to the quarterly staff meeting, and it was better than being on, Skype or something, because I was able to move around. Oh, Brigham, how are you? It's nice to see you. Go over, Sheena, what's going on? I had my coffee, so it looked like I was there, and I could move around and introduce the presenters and things like that. So right now we have one that we're going to keep using. And again, it's a 1-for-1. There's really no reduction in staff that way.
When you say 1-and-1, it means that the other one is Bean, another one is volunteer or staff?
No, so far they're all staff. right, they're all paid staff. We're hoping to experiment with volunteers, doing the basic greeting and telling folks where they can get assistance from staff if needed.
Thanks very much. So I had a question about the beam, and is there an opportunity down the road for patrons to access the beam? Meaning, we have all these great programs, and if people can't make it, or I'm thinking of a group, at the Children's Hospital that might participate remotely through something like that, is that an opportunity that we look into?
Yeah, I think it's all about staff capacity, really. But having someone schedule the beam to attend a program is certainly something that they could do. We could experiment with that. And that was one of the things we had talked about, initially was that, for example, one of the museums in the museum in Golden Gate Park has a beam that you can schedule to view the collection if you're homebound or something like that. So yeah, it certainly could be an opportunity for us, right? Or to have, somebody do story time or something like that. Yeah.
And then for folks who are interested, where, on an ongoing basis, the supercomputer and now, are they going to be at Mitchell Park? Is that where people can find them?
Yeah, right now they're there. That's where the eBranch staff is, which is the team that's managing those two projects. So at the moment, that's where they are, yeah.
Okay, great. Any other questions or comments? Okay, great. Thanks very much. Great presentation. And we get to do more for Library Digital Resources, right? With Diane and Ryan.
Okay, so about digital resources. So when we talk about digital resources, we really mean a few things: databases, readers, advisory tools, tutorials, e-books, e-magazines, e-music, and e-movies. So our library has a very comprehensive collection, truly A to Z list of coverage in terms of subjects and service levels. We currently have a total of 41 resources. 24 offer comprehensive coverage, such as the Gale and the EBSCO, two of the largest databases in the nation. 13 offer reading and listening materials, such as Access 360 ebooks services, and then Zenio or Flipster e-magazines. And then 4 offers readers advisory and tutorials, such as we just recently we added Brainfuse, the homework help service. So the process of acquiring these resources normally starts with staff trying out. Based on librarians' experience from working with the public, we determine the suitability and appropriateness. When we decide on adding a resource to our collection, staff do not engage vendors directly in contract negotiations. Our library works with CLIFA to purchase these resources. And CLIFA is a nonprofit membership cooperative. It includes most of the libraries, especially public libraries in California. And CLIFA collaborates with members to do cooperative negotiations, and that helps ensure we get a good discount with what we purchase. So over the years, that has saved a lot of staff time, even though we have a large number of resources. In terms of our usage, our resources are used well. So you can see from your packet, there's how the library served you in fiscal year 2017, there were 305,011 and 111 successful retrieval and downloads from our databases. That means our customers actually found the information pieces they were looking for, and close to 98,000 checkouts for ebooks, e-magazines, e-music, and movies combined. We
Sorry, is that in Exhibit 3 that one? or is it-
that was back in the report.
Thank you.
Okay. We spent 281,000 on acquiring these resources last year. And so if you want to average, that's about 70 cents per usage. Customers use the library website to find these resources. We once had librarians visiting schools to let students know about them. And in the library, we have handouts that alphabetically arranged by subject and to facilitate searches. We do realize, however, there's more promotion we may do to spread the words about them. And so there's room to grow. We hope the new catalog we will have help increase the usage. So Ryan is now going to show us how our new catalog may better facilitate searches.
Right, so we have this new catalog. It's based on a platform called BiblioCommons, and it will be soft launching for the public at the end of November 21st. And then we will have a hard launch where we switch over to it full-time January 24th, 2018. We're really excited about this because in terms of online resources, it's going to integrate our online resources into that catalog, something that we haven't been able to do in a really robust way in the past. It also means that we can market those resources in many places that are relevant based on where the user is and who they are. So this is going to be great. We know from other library experiences that when BiblioCommons has been implemented that any resource that gets highlighted in the system sees usage go up. So that's a good thing for us. We're excited about that. One of those things is featured in catalog. So for example, if you, let's say we're talking about Canopy streaming movies, right? So someone types movies. So we can determine on the back end, if someone types movies, we want Canopy to come up as a featured resource. It would come somewhere between the second and third result on the search results page. So this is going to be great for highlighting those resources and making the public aware. Often they don't even know that we have streaming movies, so this is like a pain point for the user that we're trying to address here. So we're hoping that's going to help. We have channels on the homepage, and by that, if you look at the image that's in this slide, you'll see there's a digital content channel and a kids and teens channel. So these are designated spaces on the library homepage for various audiences that we're addressing. And through those channels, we can highlight a resource that might be particularly relevant to kids and teens or to people who are interested in digital content. And as the user uses the site, they'll start to come to recognize there's a particular spot that they keep seeing stuff that's relevant to them. And so hopefully whenever we have something new, they can go there and they can see that spot and they'll get used to finding about new things there. And then contextual promotion. So the whole platform is going to be organized around these audiences and channels. And so this will allow people to say bookmark the kids and teens page or the kids page or the teens page, and then cards that are promoting these resources that are relevant to kids or relevant to teens if they're on the teens page. So it's all sort of audience focused. We also have a designated e-library page that's, if you look at the screenshot there, you can see it's the second item on the menu. And the e-library is going to be this place for people who want access to electronic resources, whether they be ebooks or e-audiobooks or online databases or streaming media, download resources or learning resources. And that page itself is then split up by audiences. So again, we're focusing on, communicating to specific audiences in consistent ways. And we think that this is really going to make a big difference in terms of awareness and also access and use.
So, besides expanded online accesses with the new catalog to make our resources more discoverable, we also formed a online resources committee to work on all other areas relating to digital resources. One task this committee is undertaking right now is to update our collection development policy so developing digital resources is specifically addressed in the policy. We also plan to review the existing resources and then create criteria for future purchases. We have these questions in our mind. What type of coverage do we regularly receive requests for? Do customers, when they file their requests, do customers really want to print more than electronic or vice versa? And another important task the committee has right now is to figure out what resources to eliminate because we are going to have a budget cut to electronic resources. So take a proactive approach to promotion, maybe because there's a potential there we haven't tapped into because people simply are not quite so aware of the kinds of wealth of resources that we have electronically. So we want to take a proactive approach to promote, and then the new online catalog will give us a lot of ability to do that. So that concludes our presentation about digital resources.
Okay, thanks very much. Any questions or comments? Yeah, Sheena.
Thank you very much again. I remember not very long ago, we migrate our search system from what to Sierra? Okay, so right now you mentioned about Bibliocommons. So what's the difference between these two? Do they incorporate with each other? The searching, because if I remember correctly, we just migrate the searching engine or platform from the old one to the Sierra, and now we are having the Bibliocommons. So any difference, or I like to know the difference between these two, and is the Bibliocommons incorporated with the Sierra platform, or yeah, so if we want to promote that, how we're going to do that, and how for me, I think I'm kind of confused.
Sure, where Sierra was the integrated library system, so that is the system that holds all of the customer records and it holds all of the bibliographic, the records for each item. That remains the same. Encore was the search layer that we had functioning with Sierra. And we were looking for a way to make the system more discoverable. And the LAC, when I first began here, had basically said, what we want is a website, not just a website, but we want the content of the library to be inside the catalog. And that when someone searches, they get all different kinds of information, not just the books, not just the videos, but everything integrated. So if we have, a program about, with the Master Gardeners, say, then when you search gardening, not only do you find books about gardening, you'll find movies about gardening, the feature gardening, the programs, you would be linked to be able to sign up for the gardening programs. And for several years, the eBranch staff investigated what's the most feasible way for us to develop this. Should we develop our own product? Should we look for, somebody who we can hire on staff? And actually, the most cost-efficient became BiblioCommons as a choice, because it's something that other libraries around the country use, and in Canada, it's a Canadian product. And the quality of the searches and the ability of the staff to feature items, because that was another thing that we had talked about in the LAC, was I would love to be able to just look at the shelf, but virtually, not have to be in the library, and we actually have a product that will help us allow you to do that and keep track of what you've read, and provide your own comments and reviews, a little bit like Amazon or Goodreads. So there will be more interaction among the users about, well, yes, everybody on Amazon may like this, but in Palo Alto, we don't like it, and here's why. So, there will be that ability. So we are switching. We're not getting rid of Sierra. Sierra is still where we manage all of our business functions. Laying over that, we will have BiblioCommons as the search feature, or the search platform. So they work together, and we think that it will eventually, that it will be the tool that gets us as close to what the LAC had talked about 6 years ago as we can at this point.
So does that mean that with this BiblioCommons, so it can search not just like hard copy books, it can search digital ebooks, or
Yeah, anything that we have cataloged, which it will search that information and bring it up in your search.
so
Right.
it is also smart search. So if someone just misspell a word, then BiblioCommons would suggest, do you mean this and that? So then people might recognize, oh, yes, I misspelled the word. So this person still can search what this person really like to know, right? So
Yes.
the function is pretty similar, like the library staff has ever introduced about Sierra platform, right?
Yes.
Okay, good, thank you.
And in multiple languages, so Spanish, Russian, and Chinese. So that will be available. And it'll be a much easier way to get to the digital data. You won't have to leave and then go back into something else to find it and to download it. You should be able to click once and get the item. So there will be improvements that will make it much easier to use all of the resources.
And I kind of like to know that this is a service that we have to pay, right?
Yes.
BiblioCommons, right?
Yes.
And when we migrate from the old system to Sierra, we paid for that
Correct.
service as well. So I like to know that from the old platform to Sierra, and is there a contract with this service provider that we must have the service for a certain amount of time? something like that?
Well,
Or
we-
it's like annually we
We
can?
wouldn't want to get rid of Sierra.
So we would continue use that?
Yes,
But
we
but
would
the
have
function,
to.
but the function would be some of the function would be covered by Biblio Commons.
Correct.
So it means that we'll kind of pay more.
We paid more, but the different modules that we initially purchased, we've been able to return some that we haven't used. We've been able to get credits. We've been able to do a variety of things. So the company's been very easy to work with. And for a while, we will actually run the two side by side, just as we did with when we left our last ILS to go to Sierra, so that we can ensure that that everything's working correctly before we just make a change.
So if I'm not mistaken, you mentioned that in January, when that will totally transfer to BBL Commons. Does that mean Sierra will be transferred to BBL Commons?
Sierra
No.
remains exactly as it is. It's separate.
Okay.
And this interacts with it, drawing the information from it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's the layer, the Encore, the discovery layer, that's going to be replaced with Biblio Commons. And then as Monique mentioned, the community interaction, the community participation part is a really strength for Biblio Commons. And then another aspect is there is we call it's a tool library jargon-ish. It's the augmented content, meaning we can come with this discovery layer. There's critics reviews, and then reading suggestions. Like if you read this, you may like this, and you may like that. You know, the types of augmented content like you would see in other commercial sites. So.
And another benefit is that if you do a search in Google, for example, and you're looking for a specific book, the library's catalog will be discoverable through that search. So you will see that, oh, my local library has this book, not just the Amazon and purchase results, which now we don't have that. That's not possible with the catalog, so.
I'm super excited about this because I am using the catalog all the time. A question I had was around, I think we had some usage concerns around Hoopla and hitting, that budget was getting quite big. If more people are using and discovering the electronic resources, are we worried about that? Are we expecting an issue there?
Yes, and then, yes, and then we'll, as last year we went from 10 Hoopla items per month to 5, which was horrible for some people. We would probably reduce it again. And then, it's becoming a more common business model for these vendors. So we would have to make hard decisions about what to support. But, we'll see how it goes. Fingers crossed that that everybody sees the value in it, but, we'll see. We'll deal with it.
I was wondering, looking at how the library served you and seeing how a lot of the physical resources have grown, but that like the virtual visits are down 60%, e-branch checkouts are down 40%, e-media is down 85%. Does that mean that we have kind of some bandwidth, like has something gone wrong that it brought these down and so we're trying to fix it with this digital resource plan, or?
No, that's separate. If you'll turn the page over, the note on the bottom explains that the way that the state library is counting the items has changed, and that has affected the numbers.
Okay.
So that is, all of the significant numbers changes are related to that.
Okay. Thank you.
Rather than just saying like, for example, number of searches, It's the number of downloads, so indicating the number of successful searches. So if you just poked around and didn't do anything, that wouldn't count actually as a use or a visit or a, it's strange, but, okay. We hope it just goes up, though. You're right.
Can I follow my question? May I know how much more do we pay?
I can get you that information. We've had, the contract went to city council, so you did receive a copy of it in a previous packet, because we've been working on this now for close to a year. But I'll be happy to get back to you on that. I'll do a little search. Maybe by the time the director's report, I'll have it figured out. You want to know for Biblio Commons what the contract cost was?
Yes,
Okay.
more. How much do we pay more? Because right now we have like a Sierra, and now we know the provider is very easy to work with, so we can drop some, then we can adopt BBO Commons. So if this is the amount that we pay for Sierra, and then we maybe work around with the provider, then probably we can put just a little more for the BBO
Right,
Commons.
so the initial purchase price was covered as, it was a capital improvement project budget. So it was a budget that had existed, and it was separate, it's not a part of the library's operating budget. And it was also what Sierra was paid for. So none of that came directly from the library's budget, it came from the city IT budget. And it had been budgeted as if we were building a significant building, or doing some large capital project. So what we're responsible for are the maintenance costs on an annual basis, and the changes in that are not significant, and we're not changing the budget. All of that was factored into the budget. But I will still get you the contract number.
Go ahead.
I just want to say thank you, because Doug is looking at me. I have too many questions.
Well, no, I just wanted to maybe clarify, because I heard it differently in that I think Biblio Commons is complementary to Sierra and builds on top of it. What Biblio Commons is replacing, I think if I heard Diane right, was Encore.
Yes.
And so if you're curious about that, I think it really be apples to apples would be Encore versus Biblio Commons. Is that maybe the question? Okay, all
I
right.
just want to clarify.
Okay, great. Versus Sierra, which is a bigger kind of subject. Okay, any other questions? I just wanted to follow up on the question about budget and business model. And, we got in the report a year or two ago about ebooks and the various models for that and how it doesn't, the costs kind of scales with usage, right? And I'm just curious, as you define digital resources apart from ebooks, right? So I think some of these databases that you presented tonight, are they similar to some of those ebook publishing models where the more users equals more cost? Or does it go down per visit, per use, because we're paying once for the service and then it's kind of all you can use?
They are different from ebooks. Database normally just based on the vendors quote us based on population size served. So usually for Palo Alto, they say 65,000. So that's it. Then they give you a quote. And then through Khalifa, we get a discount. And that's annual cost, regardless how you use it. So then it's to our city's advantage. If more people use it, then we get our money worth.
And in that sense, having a search that directs them to these other resources beyond just ebooks, then it's not costing as much to over-service them or service them differently. So it's to our advantage, again, to promote these other digital resources.
That's exactly.
Okay. And then I just wanted, you mentioned, and I wasn't sure if I heard it right, you said something about budget cuts? Is that, and I wasn't sure, is that because the ebooks are starting to get so expensive based on usage, or are we actually seeing we need to reduce the overall budget for digital resources. I wasn't sure what that was.
Yes, in the fiscal year 18, we were required to reduce the library budget by $58,000 in an ongoing way, and that came from the digital, and working with the finance office that was, or the budget office, that was where those cuts were made. And the answer specifically about BiblioCommons is that it's, the first year cost was not to exceed $173,220 for the first year. The contract was a 3-year contract for a total of $323,764. And those all came from the technology capital improvement budget. And it was a, where else was that? So that was it, and it was included in a May 2017 budget piece, because it included BiblioCommons, and then it was a budget amendment to the technology fund. So for that is specifically for BiblioCommons. Mhm. Okay.
Okay, great. Thanks, everyone. Great information. Thanks for the report. Okay, so I think that covers both 3 and 4 then for our topics, right? And then we'd move on to the next one, which is the LAC subcommittee report around non-English language material. And so we're going to go ahead and give an
wait.
update on that. Is that?
We have one more.
Or do we have 4?
We didn't do 2, we did 2.
Social media and BiblioCommons, or was that covered?
No,
No.
social media
Okay,
is
we're still
coming
going.
next.
Okay,
Yep.
great. Back to you. It had BiblioCommons in it, so I wasn't sure. But this is how we're going to use it with social media. Excellent, to promote.
So this is about social media and tell our stories using social media. So we have been using social media to promote library programs since 2012. We understand via social media we can share our stories and promote our programs and collections. And these platforms are spaces not only to tell our stories, but also to perform those stories. And using social media to tell Palo Alto City Library's story changes the story itself. So on the right-hand side, you can see these Instagram photos taken at community event, and that showed how our library brings library resources and services directly to library customers, which is a statement directly from our strategic plan. Our media, social media usage, that effort is governed by city's social media policy. And we are active posting messages using Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So a few months ago, we asked one of our management specialists, who was a former librarian working here, to conduct a study. And so for this presentation, I'll share with you the study results she did. And we had designed this study as a way to inform our future plan for a digital strategy. And that will also be part of the marketing plan. Our assistant director came here she did a presentation on the marketing plan. So we want this digital strategy to become part of the marketing plan. And then, but before we develop any strategy, we want to know what we have been doing. So the following few slides I'm going to share with you are a result of her findings. And you may find these findings interesting. So Facebook, for example, almost Facebook, 1,841 followers, and 96% are women. So so our experience with using Facebook is almost half of them are women between the ages of 25 to 54. And this is, it seems we're not alone in this category. And then the librarian the management specialist that did the study also confirmed with another library system that showed a similar number. And for Instagram, we have 298 followers, and we can't tell the gender breakdown. But Twitter is 978 followers, and 54% are men. So for example, on the Facebook, just a snapshot, during that period of time, June 7th to July 7th this year, and the posts were engaged, the posts we did were engaged 237 times, and then of that, 177 are reactions, like they like it. 7 made comments, and then 53 of them were shared, were forwarded. So that's what she found out from the Facebook usage. And then for Instagram, her study showed that audience growth roughly correlates with how frequent we post. So that's the graph you can see. So if we send out more, then more views. And then, of course, through these findings, there are a couple of tools we use. One is called Social Sprout, and then one is Hootsuite. We use those two to monitor the usage. And through these two tools, and then throughout her studies, we saw some opportunities. And then we learned that Facebook remains the main social media platform for most adults. And they're great channels. It's a great channel to reach women, and then women with children and teens. And Instagram could reach 2 of Palo Alto Library's priority clusters, Bright Futures and Bedtime Stories, because we have like a collage of photos that help tell our stories. And then promotional posts that feature real library spaces and people in those spaces do very well in Instagram, generating lots of interest. And Twitter may be better, it's a better platform to reach men between 25 and 54, and that's consistent with the data she studied. And then, so besides these commercial sites that social sites available for general public, the new platform, the new discovery layer presents a new opportunities, and Ryan will share us how exactly we're going to use BiblioCommons.
Right, so ahead of the BiblioCommons project, we created a content strategy for the library. And generally, this is identifying what is the story we're trying to tell, what messages support that story, who are we talking to, and then what channels do we have available to us to communicate to those audiences. So that's what the content strategy does for us. And as I discussed earlier, we've divided the site, even individual pages are divided by these channels. So social media is a place where we can then target a particular audience because we have a channel that's dedicated to them. And if we know a particular social media platform like Facebook is really strong with mothers, then we can put that in our teens and kids channel. So with BiblioCommons, because of the way we organize it, we can do that, but also BiblioCommons allows us to integrate the social media posts that our customers are making on those platforms. We can integrate those comments into our site so people can see it up front. There is actually an Instagram channel that's on the homepage, so those Instagram photos as they come in are going to be shown there, and hopefully some kids and teens will then click through to that and sign up to follow us. And then, you know, there's a lot of opportunities that this platform itself will allow us to be able to leverage, you know, whatever marketing strategies we come up with.
Right, and then there's on BiblioCommons, there's a special area dedicated for Instagram.
For Instagram, yeah, on the homepage.
Right, as shown here.
Right.
So it's on the homepage, the very first landing. Is that landing page?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Excuse me, the first homepage, this is the Facebook homepage or this is the BiblioCommons homepage?
So the image that you're seeing there
Yeah,
is
right.
just a small section of the landing page on the BiblioCommons catalog. So that page is divided up into boxes. This is just one box. Yeah. But it's dedicated to Instagram. So there'll always be the latest Instagram photos shown on that area.
What does it look like? BiblioCommons, kind of interesting. You say that there are different blocks, pictures. What does it look like if we? Yeah.
Yes, show them.
Oh, you want to
Sure.
quickly show? Yeah, we can quickly show that.
The best thing about BiblioCommons is that we have a program that the staff can use without having to hire someone who's a developer or someone to maintain it for, a full-time salary. Some libraries have substantial staff dedicated to that. This is much cheaper and no retirement costs. I'm always thinking.
So this is before beta, I guess that's alpha, so not quite ready to be seen, but I think it's coming together and we're getting pretty close to being finished, but you can see that we have this little, we're going to be reaching out to the public during the soft launch to get their feedback on what they see and get ideas from them, so we can dismiss that. And then you'll see that there are these boxes, there are carousels with our latest books and ebooks and whatever other subjects we want to put there. And these are the channels, right? So we have different channels, life hacks, tunes and flicks, and then you'll see the Instagram box on the lower right there. So this is kind of the front. You also see that our events are integrated into this here, and the events, we haven't really talked about this much, but the events calendar is also moving over to this platform as well, so it'll also be integrated throughout the whole system.
And I saw the URL. It's paloalto.bibliocommons.com.
Right, that's a
So-
temporary URL.
Yeah, I just want to know that when our users and patrons, when they log into our main website, so there's a link to this, or
Yes.
how does it work? So right
So
now,
there's a city homepage for the library department. There will be links to this, but also we will have a new URL for this, which is going to be library.cityofpaloalto.org. So that isn't in place at this point, but it will be soon.
is it running now? Is it running now?
This is-
Not yet.
This is live and working, but it's not public yet.
Oh, I
Yeah.
see. So the patrons are not able to
November 21st.
November 21st.
And the nice thing about this is that it, when you look at it, I mean, you could go and look at this right now on your phone and it would just be perfect on your phone and you would, it wouldn't be all wonky and weird. And so that's, this is, and this product didn't exist really about 6 years ago in this way, in this form. So what we're getting is something that gets as close to that original vision as possible.
Does that mean that in some way, it solved the problem that I think the LAC talked about the website for library. We talked about that, the website design. It's very outdated, it's very old, and we're not able to make any changes because it's under the city of Palo Alto. So is it some way, does it mean that in some way it just helped improve the service from Palo Alto City Library?
Absolutely.
Internetly.
Yes, absolutely. So this will make all of that information much easier to find without having to go to the calendar, without having to go to the comments. When you do a search in this, for example, you'll search for your cookbook, and you can go to the locations, and it will show you how many copies are currently available at each branch. So you don't even have to, I mean, you can see that like on the lines, but it'll have the map, and you'll be able to say, oh my gosh, if I rush, I can get that one at College Terrace. So, I think it will really improve every aspect of searching for the library stuff. And you'll still be able to get to Link Plus easily with a click or so, and, it'll all integrate really nicely.
Yeah, because I also see upcoming events. So
Yes.
if we have any events at the library, so we just can post the message on the left side. So it just serves different functions.
It will automatically harvest it from the feature and drop it off when it's done.
And I was just going to add that one of the greatest things about this particular company, Bibliocommons, is that they are actively updating this every couple months. They've got a new release that has all kinds of new features. They're actually keeping up with the internet, and that was a huge deal for us because we looked around, and a lot of library vendors don't do that. They can't do that. They're unable to do it. This company can do that, and they're actually on the cutting edge in a lot of ways. Monique mentioned that you can find books through Google in our catalog. There's a lot of things that they're doing that are really cutting edge that we're really excited about, that aren't even possible yet, but are on the way. We've seen them. They're actively developing them. So
One thing is that when we really implement it, and I just like to know, we still need a staff to put all the information on this website, right? So we still need staff to do that, even though they might not be professional web designer or.
So we have a team of librarians, right? So it's sort of changing your idea of what librarians used to do, book displays, or still do, right? When you walk in, there's the yoga books right around the 1st of January because everybody has new resolutions and stuff about dieting and things like that. So those librarians will create a content card, and maybe you can scroll down a little bit on there so you can see. So instead of featuring the top picks or the the award books, it'll say New Year, New You. And it'll be a display digitally of all of those books that they curate, that they say, well, these are really the best ones, rather than just putting out everything that we have. These are the ones that really will help you stay on that diet by March. So, you know, just all of those kinds of things. So the professionals are actually able to use their skills, I think, in a more regular way. So the librarians are the ones creating the content for these cards that are curated to focus on what we believe Palo Alto would enjoy and be attracted to, or highlighting things that maybe aren't as commonly seen, or we don't normally make a display about these books, but because of some event coming up or because of something else, we feature it. And I'll say that in my training, I found a lot of things that I thought, oh yeah, that would be really great. And I actually checked out, put a lot of things on hold that I would never have seen walking through the library. So I think it makes items more visible to more people.
It's very similar, like a Bibli web design software? No? Is it very similar to that kind of software? No? WordPress or Bibli, it's very similar, but it's more powerful.
It's a content management system that's been customized to work with library systems, yeah.
Any questions on social media and the marketing presentation? Bob?
I had a thought, you know, there's an awful lot of information available. There's a lot of, things you can get when you go online to the library. But I just wonder how people know that it's there, and how easy is it to access it, to actually say, oh, the book I want is at this branch, or I can download this information. And I just I haven't tried doing it myself, just wondered, is it readily available and, let's call it, intelligible to somebody who clicks on the library site and they're curious about, gee, I wonder if they have such and such an item available. Is it easy to do that? The other thing that occurred to me is we have a connection with a number of other libraries in the county and even in the state. And if we don't have a particular item but they have it, then presumably if a customer says, I want this book, we don't have it, but Mountain View has it, or Menlo Park has it, or some other library in another county has it, will that flip over automatically and then tell that library, gee, we'd like to borrow that in the Palo Alto Library, will you please send it to us? Does that happen, or do you have to go through it manually?
So the catalog search essentially remains the same, so you will see which library branch it's in. If we don't have it, then there is a way, it will search Link Plus. You will have to click on the Link Plus, and then you can do that search. We've had Link Plus now for longer than I've been here, and you're able to see where the books are. You place the hold, and usually within, in my experience, it's been about 2 days that the books come from somewhere in California or Nevada. All universities, public libraries, they're all part of a consortium. So it works for the physical items. It does not work for digital items. If we don't have it, you're not necessarily going to see it. However, the digital items are all available, and that's part of what we were talking about with promoting them, using BiblioCommons to make them more available. We have them there. We also have instructions on how to use them. And we have volunteers you can make an appointment with, a one-on-one appointment, and they'll show you how to, if you say, I would like to learn to stream a video, they will sit with you and your device until you can successfully do it on your own. So, we want you to learn to do it so that we are not doing it every single time, but we have volunteers who can help with that.
Okay, great. I had a question about the social media, and I was just curious, at this point, do we have a sense of how much of the content the library's publishing through the librarians, I think it is, or the team, versus the patrons? And is that ratio changing over time, or as you've this has become more of a mainstream thing versus early days? Have you seen it evolve?
So based on the study she did, she has some data. So it shows the more you're engaged, then you, especially in the case of Facebook and then Instagram, and then you get engagement back. So part of our next step is based on the environmental scan she did. We want to formulate a strategy so our behavior is consistent. And then we have a strategy, meaning when to post, what, and then how. So we have a goal in mind. Then you really generate that results you expect, because each method, each platform, as the study shows, has different audience, and then we need to wrap a different intention around each. So purposefully use these social media to achieve our goals. And then also we want to hear from our customers. So we use that as a relationship building tools, not just, oh, we're out there telling you. And we want to hear back. We want to hear people tell us. So then together, it's this community building concept. It's all centered around that.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for that information as well and all those reports. Thank you, Diane and Ryan. Absolutely. Well, our next one kind of involves Diane as well, so it's her magic night. So we'll move on then to topic 5, which is the LAC Subcommittee Report, Foreign Language Materials. And we had some info in the packet that hopefully everyone had a chance to read. I thought I could just briefly go through that as an overview if you'd like. Just kind of catching everyone up from our last meeting. So Bob and I have had an opportunity to speak and meet, and we scheduled a meeting with Diane, who had followed up on a lot of the questions we had in the last meeting. So, Bob and I wanted to thank Diane and Monique for working with us during the last couple months as we looked into this topic. And we got a lot of great info, pretty much answering all the questions that had come up from the committee. So with that, I thought I'd just walk through this, and then, of course, wanted to leave it open for Diane and Bob to chime in or answer questions if anyone has them. I think our goal tonight, we've had this committee now for a few meetings. We got some good info here and some recommendations. So we wanted to try and wrap that up and get the full committee's thoughts on that and see if we need to update them, change them, add to them, if it's acceptable, et cetera. But if so, I think maybe we're in a position, Bob and I, unless there's some big questions, where we'd probably be comfortable wrapping up the committee and, given the amount of work I think Diane and Monique have put into it so far as well. So with that, I think the overall that Bob and I found on the subcommittee is really that when it comes to foreign languages in Palo Alto is very strong. So I think that's the headline. And then, really Bob and I were trying to figure out, given that situation, how can LAC work with staff and leadership in the libraries to contribute to this. And I think really it came down to, as representatives of the community, and that's one of our roles here, if we could help staff and management with a criteria for, how to make decisions around foreign languages, that would guide things in the future. So really we were working towards that, and a vision really that our language collection best reflects our community, and vice versa. And then I think our other goal, and Bob, fill in here, was that really, I think in many ways Palo Alto is as good or better as our peer libraries, both geographically and, within California. And, that should be our goal as well when it comes to diversity in languages. And so we really went into it trying to figure out what the criteria might be with those two goals in mind and that vision. And so, one of the questions that came up when we started this was, is there an opportunity to introduce new languages, right? And the assumption is that there's budget, there's books available, but assuming that's the case, how could we establish some criteria? Well, Diane presented some great info for us, and that's really the first bit of background slide, and it's in color too, which is wonderful. And this is based on census data, so it's updated every 5 or 10 years, and it gives us really an objective look at our patrons, in a sense, or our potential patrons, and it outlines the languages spoken other than English at home for residents over 4 years old. And so really we looked at this, and then we compared that to our collection size. And we said, does our collection size represent what we see here? And if we were to introduce new languages, are there opportunities? Well, as it turns out, if you look at this chart, and the biggest group is Chinese speakers, and it goes down to Thai at 224, and there are 8,512 Chinese speakers. We cover pretty much all those languages but 3. So at the current state, there's 12 languages that meet the criteria that we already carry a collection for. In addition, there's a number of smaller languages that are below 200 that we carry as well. And that's, forgive my pronunciation, but Gujarati, Punjabi, and Tamil. So when we looked at this, we said, well, where's an opportunity for new languages? We cover a lot of these. And how could we set a criteria? So we really are suggesting and recommending that if we draw a line to say, if there's a minimum of 200 language speakers in Palo Alto, then there's 3 other opportunities to add to the collection. And that would be Urdu, Tagalog, and Thai. And if we were to do that, then every language here would be above that criteria, and we'd carry it. So our recommendation really around the new languages was to say, pending availability and budget, to investigate the possibility of adding those languages to the collection. So then the next question that we kind of addressed was around our existing languages. And the question was, is that collection reflective of the community as well? And so if you compare this same census data, this nice colorful slide with the numbers of speakers of language, to the data that Diane provided on our non-English language collections and circulation statistics, you can start to see how they align. And right now, the top languages, other than English, spoken in Palo Alto are Chinese, and in this order: Chinese, Spanish, Russian, and Korean. When it comes to our collection size, it doesn't quite align. The top size collection is Chinese, second is Russian, third is Korean, and fourth is Spanish. So if you look at that ratio, in fact, when it comes to the Chinese language, there's 11,699 resources available, books, let's just say, and there's 8,500 speakers. So it's almost roughly, let's say, it's over a 1-to-1. There's more than one book per speaker.
That's the circulation number, right? So is there a difference between the number of items, is the circulation how much it's actually being used by
Yes,
our patrons?
exactly.
So
Okay.
the total total circulation, is 11,699, but the number of
Oh, yeah, I'm
items,
sorry, exactly.
you need to do math and add up the number of items in the two columns.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, your point's still there, where there's like 5,000 Chinese items, while Spanish has like 500.
Exactly. So
it's
thank you,
much
Brigham, for
less.
rescuing me. I appreciate that, because I totaled the wrong column. But that is exactly the point, and that's what we looked at when we met. And that's the opportunity, exactly, is if you look at the data, that the size of the collection and the circulation is already proportionate to the number of speakers for the top languages, Chinese, Russian, and Korean, but there's an opportunity for the Spanish adult collection. And so the recommendation was, if we're going to be adding to the collection for the existing languages, that Spanish is an opportunity. The other thing we looked at when it came to the quality of the existing collection was comparing our library to other libraries. And again, Diane presented some wonderful information for us to work with. And that's the qualitative analysis really around how Palo Alto compares to our peer libraries. And in this case, we were as good or better in almost all the categories. There was just a few opportunities that we saw, and one of them was the Spanish adult fiction and nonfiction. Children's nonfiction offered an opportunity as well in Spanish. And then in children's DVD, there may be an opportunity in Chinese, Hindi, and Japanese. So again, that's what we laid out here based on the information. So that's a lot to kind of, a lot of data to digest. Hopefully those top level opportunities are clear. The next thing that we took a look at, a question came up in the last LEC around digital. And the question was, is there an opportunity for those long tail languages, those smaller languages, since you don't have to buy the books and have space for them, where digital could kind of fill that in? And I really let Diane maybe speak to this more, but the digital collection is really driven by availability. So believe it or not, through the services that we subscribe to, there aren't a long tail of languages at the current time. And then there's also emerging copyright issues along with the payment and business model questions that we're already dealing with in ebooks. So we didn't see an immediate opportunity, I guess I'd say, to answer that question around utilizing digital to expand into the long tail of smaller languages below 200 speakers in Palo Alto. But that's something that could evolve over time. And then meantime, the libraries, of course, just added to the collection, in Chinese and Japanese and French. We had the press release about a month ago. So there are a lot of things happening there irregardless. The other thing that came up was around the quality of the collection, basically the age of the collection. And I can't say that we dug in too deep here, but Diane did present some information. And that's one possible next step is for the staff or for LAC to look into that if we feel it's critical. But I think overall that the age and the quality was similar to the presentation we got at the last LAC from Diane for English. And that was an important takeaway. And I think just the last kind of summary topic was around, publicity. And, I think Bob spoke strongly to this point. We've got a great foreign language collection in Palo Alto. It's phenomenal. And there's just a few opportunities here through this subcommittee that we've identified to strengthen even more. But, really, are we doing everything we can to get that word out? And how best can we do that? Either through online or digital or social or just more traditional means. Just explore that. That would be a possible next step as well. So I think that's pretty much it. Bob, did you want to add to that, and Diane?
Yeah, I was thinking about it, and one thing we might consider, I don't know how we could do it, would be go out to the community and say, gee, if you would like to see books in a foreign language, non-English language in the library, or DVDs, and what would you like? What's the book and what's the language? And see what kind of feedback we get. We may get no response at all, or we may get a number of people saying, you don't have enough books in Tamil, as an example, or you don't have enough books in Spanish. So I would just like to kind of feel like of the community and see, do people even know we have all of these? And second, gee, I didn't realize my language was represented, and I'd really like a book about such and such. Do you have that? Or if you don't, can you get it? Just go out and see what happens. I think it might be useful. The other thing that I was kind of curious about is we have all of these books already. How do you decide which books in a particular language we should buy? I don't know. I can think of a dozen different ways you can come up with an idea of this is how we should stock the Thai languages or the Spanish language collection. How do we do it? I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is.
So we still, in terms of the overall picture, we still follow the collection development policy for English language. If this item going to be welcomed by the users, popular interest, if it's for children, is it there are enough graphics, big pictures, not so many words. So we still follow the similar criteria we use for English language, even for non-English, for international ones. So.
And there are books reviewed that, book reviews, just like with English books, there are reviews for foreign language books available, and we also go to book fairs or collaborate with other libraries to go to book fairs and be able to see and hold the items to add so we can see if the quality's good. Because a lot of these languages don't necessarily have a strong publishing practice in their countries. So the book, while it might be more ephemeral, it might fall apart easily, that kind of thing, so.
Yes, I just have a thought that sometimes it's really hard to define or decide if it's because we don't have enough collection, so the circulation is less, or it's because the circulation is less because they don't want to come to the library. So when we decide which books or which language that we'd like to buy more, sometimes it's hard to decide. Like the data shows that for Chinese, for the adult circulation, Chinese and Korean and Russian, they are all around thousands circulation, and the rate is Chinese is more than one, and some others is almost one. And for children, and the circulation is Chinese is number one, and we have Russian number two, and Spanish number three. So when we want to increase the collection of a certain language, sometimes it's hard to decide if we go by circulation or if we go by just because we don't have enough collection, so they don't want to borrow, or they don't want to, So maybe that's something staff can look more into it to find out maybe what the answer might be, because we have less collection, so they don't want to come to library to read it, or is it just because they don't go to library? So even though the statistics show the next population is Spanish, but it seems that for the adult collections, circulations, it's not as good as Korean, but Korean is not number two, Korean is number 4. So maybe that's another way for staff to think about. Thank you. By the way, thank you very much, Doug and Bob.
Oh, sure, yeah, no problem. And thank really to Diane and Monique for supporting and Diane especially.
And thank you all.
Okay, great. So any other questions or thoughts on the topic? Okay. You have any questions for us or any other ways we can help? I think, Bob, unless you're feeling differently, we probably can adjourn the subcommittee, having presented our report. I don't know if you have any other thoughts?
I think that unless somebody has some issues and wants to pursue it further, I think we've gathered an awful lot of very useful information, and we have a much better idea now of both the resources and the potential desires of the community, and how we can maybe reach out and get a little more interaction with the community about, are we doing what you need, or do you need more of? And if you need more of, what do you need more of? So aside from, we go out to the community anyway on all the issues, aside from just going out and kind of tweaking the community once again and saying, gee, would you like more books in whatever language? Or have you come to the library and looked for a book in your language and you couldn't find anything you wanted, so what we can do for you? I don't think we're going to get an awful lot of responses, but I think it's worthwhile at least asking.
Okay, great. Thanks, everyone.
Yes, I heard opportunities you identified, and we'll take it back to have discussion and see what kind of actions we can take. So based on the 4 you just mentioned.
Okay, great. Thanks, everyone. So now we're at the library director's report. Monique?
And look at that, we're back on time. I just attached my usual report. And you have the 2 August, September monthly reports about activities. You do have how the library served you. Thank you both. You do have how the library served you, as well as the monthly circulation and visitor count charts for the last fiscal year. So I really didn't have anything in particular to highlight, except to point out that you did have the link to the October 10th event. That was an interesting evening, hearing those speakers. And I am happy to answer any questions that you may have about any of the information in the packet.
Okay, I think go ahead, Brigham. Sorry.
No, that's,
Yeah.
yay. Somebody read it.
So I've used the automated materials handling system, which I think is magical with RFID.
Thank you.
And so I just saw that was up for the renewal, and was just wondering, there's a 20% contingency that's being safe, and I totally believe in putting aside money for rainy days, but maybe just kind of what are the likely contingencies that would have, is that just okay if something breaks? You're paying $70,000 a year, so I assume that covers something breaking, but what would you see being a contingency that we would use that money for?
If there were a need, well, actually, the contingency would really be if something happens and it requires additional service above and beyond, they had to really fly them, the technician here overnight, or there was something that broke and we needed to replace, a piece of equipment that's not covered. Something like the bins, we have rolling bins. Some of that comes out of the supplies budget, but it would be something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. And just to clarify too, the reason we elected to do a 5-year contract rather than 3 years is that we know that these are 2 big pieces of equipment that we're going to keep using, and to be able to lock in guaranteed pricing for that time seemed to make more sense for our budget planning. And rather than doing a shorter contract and then having to renegotiate, so.
No, that sounds good, especially at like Mitchell where there's thousands of books being returned every day. It just makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, good. I'm glad it's working for you. Thank you.
Okay, great. I think we're back on, ahead of schedule, at least briefly. We're now to other reports and our council liaisons report, if you have one.
I don't have very much, but I do want to say I'm excited for the Diwali event this coming weekend. So thank you for putting that on. I really appreciate the diversity aspect, especially with what you've just presented also. Thank you.
Yes, that's a good reminder. This coming Sunday from 12 to 5 at Rinconada, we will be celebrating Diwali for the first time at the library, having an event. We invite the public, we invite all of you to come, and I think it'll be a really great event.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So Commissioner reports and questions? Okay, I have one. I'll go ahead. Someone's got to have one. Jeez. So I did want to thank Monique and the staff, and I really do want to encourage everyone. Monique mentioned it, the link to the Collaborators for the Future. I'm not sure if anyone's had a chance to take a look, but it was a really wonderful event, and it grew out of a conversation, with the LAC. So it was a great way for all of us to work together and really open our minds about what libraries might look like down the road. And the speakers were wonderful, and we had a good crowd, and so it was a great event. So thank you very much, Monique and staff, for that. The other thing was I wanted to thank our friends at the Friends. So Nigel couldn't be here tonight, Nigel Jones, who is the chair of the board of the Friends of the Palo Alto Library. He and I had a chance to get together before the latest book sale, and I got a chance to meet the volunteers and have lunch and got a tour, and just another plug for them and the book sales and what they do for our libraries. It's wonderful. But I just encourage everybody, if you have time, I'm sure Nigel would love to do the same with you, and it's a great experience. So it's a great opportunity. And out of that, I did want to mention, their newsletter, which they send out. There was an article about Mary Jean Place. I don't know who's familiar with that. I actually was not familiar with her, so I did want to mention this. And I think this is a great forum for it. And I if it's okay, I think I'll just read from their newsletter. So Mary Jean passed away. She died on February 7th, 2017, at age 90. And she was really well known in the community as a champion of libraries. And she served as the president of FOPL during their formative time in the late 90s and early 2000s. And she was also a strong advocate for the creation of this commission, the Library Advisory Commission. And then after leaving FOPL, she helped start the Palo Alto Library Foundation and served as its first president. And so she never forgot the Friends or our libraries, and I just wanted to recognize all that wonderful service to our community. And I wanted to mention it here for us as well. I don't know if there's anything we'd want to do to honor her in our libraries, or so that people can, learn about her service to the community as a leader and someone who championed libraries, so we don't forget that, and other people might be inspired. But it's just something I'd wanted to bring up, and if anyone has any creative thoughts or ideas, maybe that's something we could explore down the road. Maybe somebody wants to form a subcommittee and look into it. No.
I did want to mention, too, that in 2018, it will be FOPAL's 80th anniversary. So we will be bringing a resolution during National Library Week to recognize them. Actually just in recent time, they've donated altogether well over $2 million to library support. So they are a very strong and great group. And we did have the volunteer appreciation luncheon a couple weeks ago, and had the friends there, so that was a really nice event. And the Mary Jean Place is a good another good reminder that there are many great library previous library supporters and employees. And it may be worth having, like, Steve Steiger from the History Association come and talk about librarians in the past. That would be a nice opportunity, so.
Okay, any comments or announcements? And our agenda for next meeting? Any burning topics? Bob?
And one thing that we might consider is, do we have any way of being more effective in getting out to the community all that the libraries offer? Because I think a lot of the assets that the library provides aren't commonly recognized by the customers, by the community. And, unless you talk to a number of people and get an idea, get some feedback, you won't know. But my impression is that we're doing so much and doing it so well that a lot of people just aren't aware that it's available. And, just think about it. Do we have to get more information out? Maybe send a notice to the Weekly and the Post and hope they'll print it, for example. Gee, we've got this new service and here's how you get to it, whatever. I just think that we offer an awful lot that the people don't all recognize. And even if they go to the website, it's easy to miss things on the website because you're looking for, this is what I'm interested in, and the other new thing is over on the side and they don't even think to look there. Just a suggestion, do we have to go out to the public and tell them, hey, we got this wonderful new opportunity for you and we can really do things what you never thought we could do?
My question is, so the December 28th date is whether or not you wanted to keep it that date or not, whether people will be here or not. I will, but, that's, that doesn't mean everybody else will. So, so we do want to confirm that date is going to work.
I will not be able to make that date.
I don't think I'd be able to make it either at this
We
point.
could get a beam, and we could do with a beam.
I know. It's so fun to drive.
We only have one beat.
Yeah.
That's the problem with the idea.
That's the problem.
Does the bean count towards quorum as well? So do folks want to check their calendars and let us know? Or I think if we have three, we can have the meeting, I mean, unless we felt like we needed to reschedule it just so everybody could be here. But if we are going to plan on having only three, the three have to be here.
Well, would it be more effective if we moved it up a couple of weeks, so it was not after Christmas, but before Christmas? Does that make it more convenient for people to attend?
What's been done in the past? Do you skip December?
No, well, no, the LAC feels very strongly that they need to meet in December, or at least they have in the past. Years ago, they did actually skip December. December was not a regular meeting. And you could even go to January, or you could not have it at all, however you guys want to do that. And it has been moved up in the month, earlier in the month. That still often creates conflicts for people because there's all the holiday parties and things like that. But, and the meeting room availability can also be an issue, but we are happy to try and accommodate whatever. I mean, we could poll and, unless you had wanted to say, no, we're not going to do it, or yes, we are, so.
do we have agenda items that we want to discuss in December? That might determine whether we want to meet in December.
Yeah, and if any of them are so time sensitive that we'd want to do it in December versus maybe January. So, well, I think we do need to poll, and we probably want to have everybody check their calendars and, email to make sure that we're all clear about who's available when. So I think we should probably poll on the December date, the 28th, just to see if we are going to hold it, who's available. And then let's look into, I don't know, I guess I personally, Bob, I don't know if, if we were to move it to January, would that work for you, or would you really prefer to do it in December? Okay, so when we poll, maybe we could ask what, around people's availability and preference.
Yeah.
Okay? And then we'll see where we end up. Great. Okay, any other agenda items then for December or January?
Well, whenever we do meet, I'm giving you homework. Actually, I would like for you to look at how the library served you, because we will, in the next packet, have the state library report. So you'll have the statistics and what we submitted to the state library. And it will give us an opportunity to review statistics and decide, is how the library served you the best option? We are part of the city's open data site. There's information that's different, a little different there. Not the numbers, but just what we're reporting. And see if we can't figure out what would make the most sense to report regularly and what format. We will have an annualized chart of the data for over years, right? We've done that before, of attendance and circulation, so that you can have a discussion about it, basically.
One of the things that struck me as being useful is events at the library. We're going to have this Diwali this weekend. And let's see how it works out. And does this mean we would be doing the community a benefit by getting more of these types of events, not necessarily every month, every other month, but over the course of a year at the library facilities? Is this something that the community wants and that we want to do or not? So I think getting feedback from this weekend would give us some information on what do we want to do in the future and to what extent.
Yeah, typically, like when we've participated in Chinese New Year or had some cultural or one-time big event, we have several hundred people who come, who participate, who are doing that, and generally leaving with a smile on their face. So hopefully that's an indication that, yes, it's something we would want. And the Chinese New Year built year over year so that it was to the point where, we're lucky the fire inspector didn't come by. So, although the fire chief said, "Oh, I'll be happy to drop by anytime," I said, "No, that's all right." But so I think you're right. We do ask people. We do get satisfaction surveys, and we do things after programs all the time. That's not stuff that we generally report because we use it as a course correction kind of thing. So we're pretty on top of that, and we do have the counting opinions survey, that is satisfaction survey, that is on the website, not in paper, but it allows people to give us feedback on every library visit if they wanted to. Every time you came to the library, you could go home and fill it out, or fill it out in the building. and talk about what you like, what you don't like, what the interactions were like. Did you find what you needed? Why or why not? So, but that's all the kind of statistical information we could talk about. So at some meeting in the future, I think that that's worth having a conversation, especially because a lot of our use, we're very, we are insulated. And so when you see how our library compares to other libraries, you realize, oh yeah, we are doing a really good job. And so our circulation's gone up, our attendance has gone up. The trend nationally is still that circulation is going down. So, we continue to grow in that respect. Though our focus now is more on the quality of the interactions and the satisfaction with the interactions. So that would be an agenda item coming up, but I don't know if there's anything else you wanted.
Those, and if there's others, we can email. All right, great. Well, any other comments or questions? Excellent. So I think with that, we will move to adjourn the meeting if we have a motion.
I move to adjourn.
Exactly. We'll just sit here and wait.
Okay, I'll second.
All right, now we're talking. All in favor? Comments, questions? Any opposed? You can stay. All right, thanks everyone. Have a good night.